Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We're just getting things set up for live stream. And as a reminder, there is Spanish interpretation available. So I'll let you go ahead with introductions, Connie.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight as we kick off the Red Ribbon Week campaign. This is really exciting. And before we begin, I have a big favor to ask of our audience. We'd love to see who's here tonight. So if you feel okay to do so, would you please just type your name in the chat and let us know if you're a student, parent, teacher, grandparent, or how you'd like to be identified. That would be most helpful to us. Our students have been so looking forward to this evening. You are in for a real treat to hear from them as they address the mental health and well-being of all students and how we can come together to support and help each other. My name is Connie Rawmakers. I'm the director of our community coalition, Tigard Turns the Tide, and I've had the privilege of working with these students through our Tigard High Stud Club and the Tigard Youth Advisory Council with the City of Tigard for many, many years. Before I turn the time over to Dr. Amy and our student panel to introduce themselves, I would like to just take a minute to recognize those who have helped make tonight happen. Thank you to the Tigard-Tualatin School District for all of their support. And behind the scenes, we have Thor Kuhn helping us with our technology, and we have Africa Ramirez and Lisa Burton helping with our Spanish translation. Also, a huge thank you to the Tigard High staff for helping with the advertisement and also for helping me behind the scenes. Also, a huge shout out to our amazing Tigard High health teacher, Connie Jolly, and her students for all their help with this project. Now I'd like to turn the time over to Dr. Amy and our panel for some introductions.
All right, thanks, Connie. I am thrilled and humbled to be here. I've had the pleasure of working with all of these incredible students who are on our panel tonight, both before you and behind the scenes for the last couple of months. All of the ideas that they've come up with in terms of integrating health classes, messaging about student mental health, creating this panel have all come genuinely from these students. Every time I get a chance to work with these types of panels of students, I am inspired at the youth that is in our communities and their leadership and their skills. So it has been my pleasure to work with all of them over the last couple of months. These are some of the students who I've been working with, and there have been several more behind the scenes. So I'm going to let our students introduce themselves briefly. Just a little reminder for all of our panelists, here's the order that you're going to introduce yourselves in, and I'm going to stop the screen share so you can see all of their lovely faces here pop up on the screen. So Sarah, we'll start with you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Gibb. I'm a senior at Tigard High School this year. I've been a part of STUD for about 3 years now, and this year I'm a co-president of STUD.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Henry Taylor Golby. I am a senior also at Tigard High School. I am a co-president of STUD. I'm on the Tigard Youth Advisory Council, and I am the TTSD Tigard's student rep to the school board.
Hello, I'm Joseph Oldham. I'm also a member of STUD. I'm also a senior at Tigard High School as well.
Hi everyone, I am Natalia Hawkes. I am a junior at Tualatin High School and I am president of Tigard Youth Advisory Council.
Hi, I'm Eli Chesler. I'm a junior at Tigard High School and I'm also a member of STUD.
Hi, I am Abigail McNatt. I am a junior. I started STUD during COVID, and I am in THS for Tigard High School.
Hello, I'm Samantha Larson. I'm a sophomore at Tigard High School, and I'm also a member of STUD.
Hi, I'm Bella Peterson. I'm also a sophomore at Tigard High School and have been STUD this year, and I joined last year.
Wonderful. I think that's all of our panelists. Did we miss anybody? think we got all of you. And thank you for everybody. I see you all in the chat box. It looks like there's some students here and board members here and community members. It's great to see all of you as usual. I'm Amy Stober. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I've been working with this incredible group over the last couple of months. So let me pull up our screen share again, because we have some wonderful kickoff questions. But first, I think Joseph is going to talk to us about why we're here. So here's our brief overview for the night. Let me just pull that back up. We're going to just talk about why we're here, and then we have some questions that students have submitted. You're also, all of you, welcome to just pop into the chat box and put questions in there that you have about student mental health, and the students on our panel are here to answer those questions, and I'm there to just be their support person. We really want this to be questions that are asked by students and answered by students. So we'll have that robust discussion. I'll give feedback and input as needed, and then we'll also be providing some resources for next steps towards the end of our presentation, because we wanted you to leave with some really great tools as well. So without further ado, Joseph.
So we are here to help our peers as they return from distance learning. We are here to provide support to our friends during a tough time. We are here to learn to be healthy and love ourselves. And we are here to decrease stigma around mental health. And we are here to differentiate between mental health and mental illness.
Awesome. Thank you, Joseph. Sarah.
Hi, everybody. We're going to begin with the questions. Before I introduce the first question, I saw someone write something in the chat. STUD stands for Stop Tigard Underage Drinking and Drugs. We do a lot of panel discussions, events like this, and we also try to connect with students in our school and the district and get them to understand drug use in students more. So that was just a little bit about that. If you need more about that or have more questions about STUD, feel free to pop them in the chat. So our first question tonight is, how do we define mental health?
All right, so I'm going to let our student panelists take a first round of answering that question. So does anybody from our student panel want to talk about how we define mental health? And it might go along with Eli's next question as well. Eli, do you want to ask that question out loud too? Because I think the two are pretty related.
How do we differentiate from mental health diagnosis or mental illness?
Wonderful.
I would love to tackle this question. So I define mental health as everything emotional that comes into our lives every single day. So being happy, feeling sad, all of those emotions, it's a spectrum. It's that kind of how we live our everyday lives, and it's very close to mental wellness that you learn about in health class, with occupational wellness as being one of those 7 different dimensions of wellness. And then mental health and mental illness is really the difference between clinical diagnoses and mental health being something that we experience every day. We tend to conflate the two, and that creates a lot of stigma around both of them. But mental illness is that diagnosis of maybe bipolar disorder versus how you feel in your everyday life.
Mm-hmm. Sarah and Natalia, do either of you want to add more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot like Henry said, mental health, as described by the CDC, refers to our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. So this is your everyday. It's good or bad. It's what you feel in the everyday. And then also CDC. Mental illness is conditions that affect a person's thinking and feeling, mood, or behavior, which, yes, include clinical diagnoses.
Wonderful. Any other student panelists want to add to that about differentiating between mental health and mental illness?
I would love to add something to that, Dr. Amy. I just wanted to share to add on to what they said already. This is kind of taking this question in a new direction, but I think that it's really hard to differentiate from the difference of mental health, whether my mental health is good, am I happy today, or am I sad, between having depression or another mental health issue. I know it might be hard for us to understand the difference between the two, but we have a lot of resources that we'll be sharing later on today that can help you guys more if there's anybody who's questioning whether that they're suffering from or someone else they know might be suffering from a bigger mental health issue.
Wonderful. I know that when I was talking with all of the students, one of the things that they felt really passionate about was making sure that all of their peers knew that mental health was something we should be talking about and taking care of, like mental wellness. It's something that impacts us every day. All of us have our own levels of mental health, some good days, some bad days, and mental health is really our whole self. And that's different from mental illness. And certainly we want to decrease stigma around mental illness as well, and reaching out and getting help and support. But sometimes students get worried that if they're talking about mental health, they're really talking about, or maybe even admitting that they have a mental illness. And we wanted to just be sure to really separate the two of those. So let's go on to this next question, Abigail. If you want to read this next question, that kind of will help us get started.
What are the steps to getting help?
Wonderful. So how about our student panelists? What are some of the steps to getting help?
There are quite a few steps that you can take. 3 bullet points do a pretty good job. Recognizing you need help and it's okay to ask for help are 2 of the very big ones that come up first. So it's recognizing that you need help. And when we say help, it doesn't mean that you're struggling so badly that you can't go on without help. It's just recognizing that you might want some support, or you want to talk about what's going on in your life. And then it's also important to realize that it's never too early to ask for help. In that same vein, it's never too late. And help can come in many forms on a continuum. Like I was saying, it can be your friends, it can be teachers, it can be parents, it can be an organization. There's many different ways that you can go for asking for help and getting help. But the first step is to really recognize that you need or want help.
Awesome. Sarah, Natalia, do either of you want to add anything?
Yeah, for sure. So going off of what Henry said, I think the first steps, recognizing that you need help, that can often be one of the hardest ones because it has to deal with a lot of the stigma that's around it. And admitting to yourself that you need help is very difficult sometimes. And also, it's like also Henry said, it's not just help that you can't go on without it, but it could just be things that enhance your life or can make things easier. And that's a form of help in itself, like talking to someone or even medication if you have a diagnosis, and reaching out for that diagnosis. I also really want to highlight on it's never too early to ask for help. Really, no problem is too small. If it's going to help you, that's the main important thing.
Sarah, anything else?
I think they did great. I love that Natalia said, just like starting with anything, it doesn't have to be a super huge issue. It could just be, I had a really bad week this week and I just need to reach out to a counselor or a therapist, parent, or a close friend and let them know what's going on. I think that a lot of us also feel like we can't go for help unless we have something huge going on in our lives. But I think that we need to start with the small steps, recognizing that we need to help ourselves and be healthy ourselves, honestly can train our brain and train ourselves to be aware of those, things going on so that when something bigger comes along, then we're prepared and we know where to go and what to look for help.
Wonderful. Think about any problem that you've had in your life, even something that's not related to mental illness or mental well-being, right? The sooner you recognize the problem and go in and fix that problem, the easier that problem is to solve, right? So if there are students on here, it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm kind of behind in math. I don't really understand. The sooner you go in and talk to the math teacher, the better that feels, because otherwise you're like 6 assignments behind and you've lost all the processes and all the steps, and then you're overwhelmed and you're like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. I'm going to fail math now. The sooner we ask for help with our mental health as well, the better it feels and the sooner we can address it. But I also want to underscore what Henry said. It's never too late either. There is no problem, I promise you, as a psychologist in the community that's too big, that we can't tackle together, that we can't overcome together, one of the biggest things that this group of students has been really passionate about as we've worked together is just wanting students to not feel alone. And so no problem either is too big to reach out for help and support. And so I'm going to put up a continuum here. And maybe Henry, you want to talk about for a moment that there's a whole continuum of support from least invasive to more urgent.
Yeah, totally. So one of the easiest ways, I think, that's also the one that you don't have to ask for much for is self-reflection and journaling. That's where I go to a lot of the time. It's like whatever I want to talk about. It could be like I had a great day. It could be I had a normal day and I had a cup of coffee and that cup of coffee was awesome and made my day great. It doesn't have to be something super deep, but keeping a journal helps keep me in a habit and talking about my mental health and making sure that if I'm aware of how I feel, then I can be aware of how other people feel and help them if they need it. And then also talking to friends, adults, parents, and teachers as we move towards the down the continuum. Talking to friends is huge for me. Like if I do have a bad week, like Sarah was saying, talking to friends can really help. And what's super important about talking to friends specifically is that they do share a lot of similar experiences to you. Like I like talking to my friends that are full IB because we all know what stress is like, especially at that super high level of, I have a ton of homework tonight. So being able to relate to them, there are students that do share those experiences and those cohorts, and that's part of your circle of support. And then as we move over again, reaching out for help, that can be to parents or to teachers, but it can also be to therapists, to coaches, to life coaches or support groups. And then all the way on the far right, we have hotlines, suicide hotlines. Those are great ways to get support, especially if you wanted to do it anonymously, or if you didn't want to have to go see somebody in person, or it's on your phone, if you carry your phone almost every day. So that's just the continuum. There's a lot of things in between that, and I'm sure that Dr. Amy knows what most of those are and can tell you if you had questions.
Yeah, and there are going to be lots of resource pages at the end of the slide deck for resources in our community and also resources right at the high school that you can take advantage of. Sarah and Natalia, you want to add anything about this continuum of support and where people can reach out for help?
I was just going to talk about journaling, which goes on a little later. There's a couple questions I can cover that too. But journaling is a super great first step. And even if you don't need help, it's just something to like balance yourself. And there's no judgment in a journal. Your English teacher is not grading you on grammar or your spelling or the motif behind it. So really just anything that's going on in your day, and a lot of times it can help to like see it out on paper and try to word these things, word these emotions that you're feeling, good or bad. And from there you can like take next steps.
Awesome. Okay. Let's go ahead and go on.
The next question that we're going to talk about is can we have a class or training on dealing with mental health where we learn strategies?
So we gave a lot of, we had a lot of discussion about this as a panel. And I just put some bullet points there, and Natalia or Henry or Sarah, if you want to go over those bullet points, you're welcome to, but this was a question that came from a student at Tigard High School, like, why isn't there a class where we learn these mental health strategies? And the students on this panel were really passionate about answering that and felt like it was really important too. So I don't know if one of you want to speak to that.
This might come as a surprise, but I'm pretty passionate about all of these things. I care very deeply for SEL. I think that it's an important component for students' success, especially moving all the way from elementary school up through high school, and maintaining that level of recognizing that social emotional learning is important, especially since it hasn't been addressed in the past. And then on that idea of SEL, when we get to seminar style health classes, those are one of the things that I think are super important. Seminar style classes in general, I think, are super important, but because this person was asking like a training to deal with mental health or we learn strategies, a lot of students have their own strategies as well. So I think that there is some merit to seminar style health classes because there is that group component of being able to share with your peers what you've done, as well as having that structure from a health teacher to tell you square breathing or other kinds of strategies that there are that we might not learn. And because it would be seminar style, you're not like preparing for an exam where you're stressing yourself out to memorize something in a specific way to then go on and take the test and then forget. So I think that with seminar style classes, it's about it helps people retain that information. I think definitely for me, I process way better when I talk out loud. And then also, and what's interesting here is writing letters or submitting opinions in places of leadership or public comment can be heard, can have a huge impact. Like for adoption for seminar style health classes, I'm 100% sure that if a bunch of students came forward and were like, we really want this, that people would listen. It's about that demonstrated need that if you want something and if you campaign for it, it's more likely to happen than if you didn't. Famous Michael Jordan quote is, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." So it's always worth trying.
And I wonder, I'm kind of ad-libbing a question here related to this for any of the students on the panel. I know that, health classes begin introductions into mental health issues, but where else have all of you learned about issues regarding student mental health?
So I've noticed that a lot of classes, I'm pretty sure this is widespread throughout TTSD, they have like check-ins nowadays, which is really nice. A lot of times they're weekly. So I think those have kind of been emerging like throughout my middle school and high school career, where the teachers try to they have this lesson and it's broadcasted throughout the school. So besides health classes, that's definitely where I would say I've learned some of the things pertaining to school. And other than that, it's definitely been outside sources, talking to peers, seeing what works for people, and the Google.
Yeah. Anyone else on the panel? Where else have you learned about mental health issues outside of health class?
I have learned a lot about mental health issues and just a lot of other things in general because of this club, STUD. I joined STUD and I just have learned so much more. It got me thinking that, there are a lot of clubs and a lot of extracurriculars at Tigard and at Tualatin and other schools around here that have implemented clubs and activities like this, where they're making this information more available to students. But I also know that it's a good conversation. Like, you don't have to be in school or have these SEL lessons during your class to still get this information and just be able to have this connectivity. I think that it really starts in the home with parents wanting to talk to their kids about this and have an open discussion with them. I think that could be the best as well. This kind of ties in with the questions beforehand, getting help, learning when you should, when it's time to talk to somebody. I think that this could be a very positive thing for the students of our district if they're open to close friends and family members and they go to them with their questions and they kind of research together what mental health is for them.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And later on, I know we're going to talk about how to develop some of those circles of support, Sarah. But I also want to just say to the group at large that's listening tonight, I would say outside of health class and a more intentioned way of talking about mental health and SEL times in different groups, for the most part, students are often on their own and they feel very alone and they feel very isolated when it comes to mental health in general. Like, how do I just take care of myself, my mental wellness, my well-being when I'm overwhelmed, when I'm feeling isolated, when I'm having hard days, or if I'm concerned about a more significant mental health issue like depression, anxiety, thought disorders. I think often kids are feeling pretty alone. And so hopefully tonight you'll get some more information on resources in terms of places that you can tap into to get more questions answered. Eli, go ahead with our next question.
So our next question is, what are some tools that I could be using to help with my anxiety while I wait to get help?
Great.
So before we move on to the next question, just really fast, I want to highlight what Henry said. Definitely writing letters, submitting opinions to any people, and like Power. We have a lot of people in our neighborhood that are community that are definitely willing to listen. So if you see something that you would like implemented in our curriculum, let your voice out. So hopefully we have enough people.
Awesome. Thank you, Natalia. What do all of our panelists think about, like, maybe I'm thinking I have some anxiety and I'm thinking about reaching out for help, but are there some tools or things that I could use in the meantime while I'm waiting?
So as somebody who has plenty of anxiety in my life, there were a lot of things. Having a therapist for a mom is probably one of the most helpful things in my entire life. But there were a lot of things that she kind of taught me that was just like, it's a lot of talking to yourself for me personally. When I would tell myself, she said, Henry, tell yourself that there's not a bear in the room, like in your own head. And I was like, Mom, obviously there's no bear in the room. I'm not, like, really? And it's kind of crazy how well that works. It sounds really dumb. Like when I heard it, I was like, that's so dumb. And then I was anxious one time and I practiced it and it worked. And I was like, oh, okay. So number one tip is, even if it sounds dumb, I recommend doing it because you never know until you know. Square breathing's also great. I remember, like, a lot of times I'll just like manage my breathing. That really helps. I think regulating my heart rate was huge. And then, I mean, for my anxiety, a lot of it was also like being like acknowledged just in general. Like there's a great author named Hanif Abdul-Rakib who wrote a story about anxiety, and reading that narrative essay, like, for me, just to hear that somebody else kind of has that same experience and could explain it so well was eye-opening and affirming. So there's a lot of different ways that you can help with your anxiety. There's that physical aspect of square breathing, or telling yourself that there's not something that's super pressing that's going to kill you like a bear would. But there's also that component of getting affirmation from maybe an author or watching a TED talk about it. Those are definitely some tools that I've used and have been super helpful for me.
Awesome. Other ideas from student panelists?
So yeah, definitely in the short term, going off of what Henry said, definitely breathing exercises. There's a bunch and there's a lot of resources with a quick Google. Another one is like the grounding technique, which is where you like 5 things. I think it's like you can feel and you use all your senses going on from there, like things you can see. And so that just kind of like puts you in the moment, like has you check in with yourself. And yes, with the bear thing, because anxiety is really kind of feeling like you're in danger, and it comes from when we were like first roaming around. And so it's really checking with yourself and saying, I'm not in immediate danger, I am okay. And then being able to like move on from there, and the things that are bothering you at the moment that our caveman ancestors did not have to deal with, like IB bio. And yeah, and then long term, definitely but going back to journaling, that's something that can help you like check in.
I love those ideas. Anybody else on the panel want to share ideas of just tools that they use before like more help is on the way?
Could I add something, Dr. Avery?
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of similar to like what people have been saying about like journaling, but like when like I feel like anxious, or like super stressed, a lot of the times it's like I'm just like everything's stressful, like just like my entire life is stressful. But then like one time my mom told me like just like not everything is causing you like anxiety, but it's just like little things. So it's like think through, like make a list of like what things are causing you like anxiety, and then you'll realize that it's like not that much. It's not as much as you think. Whereas like when like something causes it, it can like blow up and we can just like freak out. But when we like identify what it is that's causing us to freak out, then it's like not as like it's not as scary. But if we just let it float around, like if we don't like identify what it is that like let's say like we have something to do, but like we're not like 100% sure, or we know we have a lot of homework, but we don't know what it all is, how long it's going to take, like when it's due. It's just like floating around in our mind. It can like just like cause us to be so overwhelmed. But when we like take time to like really pinpoint it all, then it can kind of just like, it can still be stressful, but it's like you have more control. Even though you never have like full control, but you have more, and that can be kind of like reassuring, and it can help like ground you.
I love it, Bella. I don't know. I hope everybody who's listening, like these students should be interns really for mental health. These are fabulous ideas. The only other thing I would add to that, and they've kind of encapsulated it, right, in terms of like breathing and doing some grounding techniques, is anytime you can get into the creative part of your brain, it really helps regulate and help with anxiety. And that's something that you can do without seeing a therapist. So the things that I think about are like, painting and weaving and sewing and dancing and creating a Spotify playlist that you can sing to and be expressive with and stretch and move your body and laugh, right? Like watch all the reruns of the things that make you really have those deep belly laughs. And then never underestimate the power of touch, right? In the middle of a pandemic, one of the things that felt so isolating for teenagers is because they're meant to be in packs and they're meant to be around each other and they're meant to be like, puppy piles and gaggles of teenagers kind of together. And so, just making sure that, if you're a parent, that you're hugging your teenager. I know that they sometimes send you messaging that they don't want that or need that, but it really does like increase this feel-good chemical response. And then just never being afraid to like reach out to a friend, and be kind of their buddy with grounding and breathing and reassuring. And I love all the ideas that the students just shared in terms of writing and writing down thoughts and ideas. I love what Bella said, that it's not as scary once you write it down. So there's no bear in the room then once you write it down. Great job. Abigail, you're up.
If I'm concerned about a friend, how do you know when it's serious enough to talk to them?
Great question. I hand it to you first, students.
I will talk again, but if somebody else would rather take the charge, I'm giving them space to do that.
I will begin if that's okay. So this is a really hard thing because it can be very case by case and there's no like certain marker or point. If they're your friend, obviously you care about them and you care about everyone as a human. So to talk to them, it's really doesn't have to be that serious to be able to like check in with them. Really, that should be something we can all do for our friends, like on the daily, or people we care about, or even people we don't know, really. But to look for them into getting help, that's another series. And really it can be if they are talking about hurting themselves or hurting others, that's kind of your last marker where you should really look into getting them help. And there's a lot of great people that you can go to at your school. The main office can really direct you towards someone, and a lot of our schools right now have really great people that can help you from there and help them from there. So I'm going to let Dr. Amy talk very scientifically about this, but.
Thank you, Natalia. Do others of you though have comments about like when you're concerned about a friend, how do you know when it's serious enough? Like, how do you gauge that with your friends? Or maybe you've had an experience like that where you had to make that judgment call.
I think that there, like Natalia was saying, there isn't really a point where it gets to be like you will know. A lot of it's kind of an innate feeling. But definitely if they're thinking about hurting themselves or other people, that is a huge marker. But I think that a lot of it really comes down to checking in with your friends. I think that one of the most basic yet effective things you can do is just ask how people are doing and really ask them genuinely. You can even say, like, genuinely, how are you doing? It's just giving that space for people to be open really helps you understand where they're at and where you're at. And when people are more open with you, it's a lot easier to really gauge that. I think that part of what's really important about this question is that you also don't burden yourself. That's important. Like, your friends are important. their mental health is important, but you shouldn't take the whole charge and totally jeopardize your own mental health trying to help other people. Definitely talking to an adult, somebody that they care about that can talk to them would be a great idea. Like if you know they have a great relationship with Miss Jolly at Tigard, then you could tell Miss Jolly, hey, so-and-so isn't doing so well. Could you talk to them? Maybe check in with them. There's a lot of different ways and it doesn't always have to be super direct. So whenever it's serious enough is kind of a hard question to answer, but it really depends on what you think you would want in their position and gauging them in how they're doing, just asking them that.
Awesome. And you know, what I would say to what Henry and Natalia are saying is that if it feels serious to you, it's serious. You don't have to have a reason or an explanation for that if you're worried about a friend. Here's my kind of general outline, right? Start with love and express your worry. So I might say, you know, Natalia, I care about you so much. You're one of my best friends. And I just noticed lately that you seem really sad or you seem really overwhelmed. And you know, I want to help you and I'm here for you, but it also might be helpful if you talk to, you know, fill in the blank, like a favorite teacher or a counselor or somebody that like a coach that you're both really close to. And so that's what I'm saying, like start with love and warmth and the fact that you honor the friendship and then express the worry or the fear, right? And then that way you're having a productive conversation to honor both what your friend is going through, but also what Henry said in terms of not holding all of that yourself and feeling like you have to solve the problem. And then that way you can say, hey, what if we went and talked to, you know, X teacher that we both really like, that feels like a safe person, or, you know, my mom or your mom or another safe adult. All right. Sarah.
Natalia had her hand up. I'm going to let her talk for a second.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
So sorry, I was just gonna say one last thing, that I know it can be really scary reaching out for someone, and also even just talking to them, worrying that, I know a lot of people worry that maybe they'll be mad at me, but if you reach out to someone for them to get them help, but it's really just being better safe than sorry. They'll understand at the end of the day that you care and this is why you did this, and you're really looking out for them. So I know it's scary, but good thing.
It can also be emotionally taxing to ask somebody to like elaborate on how they feel. So if people are like, I'm fine, it could be that they really are fine, but it's also that it's hard to explain how you feel every single day, especially if somebody is like kind of like all up in your face about it. Like, I really care about you, but I'm worried about you. It's a lot easier to say that you're fine. So I think that a large part of that as well is you don't also have to be 100% like always emotionally out there and available, as much as you just have to be like, these people do care about me, and to express that care is more important than to like press people into sharing everything. Just caring about your friends and telling them that you do care in multiple ways, like just asking how they are, just saying hi in the halls. That was a huge thing for me when people started saying hi in the halls. I was like, oh, people know me. That was like part of helping me become more open. There's just very little things that make people's lives and make them happier that are super easy to do. So I think that those are also all valid ways to address serious or not so serious health issues or concerns.
Awesome. Sarah, you have a really good question here coming up. This is an important one.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add one thing to that. Awesome answers to that question. Someone once told me it's only as awkward as you make it. So it's your decision. How are you going to handle this conversation? If you know the person really well, then think about how you're going to approach them. If they don't like, telling exactly how they feel, like Henry was saying, then give them that space and, be really cautious and understanding of who they are and how you can help them best. Okay, so this next question is, when you talk to someone at school, do your parents have to know?
I love this question so much, first of all, because I think it's one of the biggest barriers that prevent students from asking for help, because they're worried about who will find out. So our student panelists, I think a couple of you have some ideas around that, and then I'll give some legal background to it as well. Does your parent? Yeah, go ahead.
No, they do not have to know. I know that for counselors, nurse practitioners, and people of that type, that there is a mandated reporter law where if you are threatening to hurt yourself or others, they do have to say something. But other than that, no. Like if you go to the school-based health center, your parents don't have to know that you went and talked to somebody. When you talk to friends, your parents don't have to know. When you talk to teachers, they don't have to know. If you do want your parents to know, you could express that to your teacher. But there is no way that your parents would have to know anything about your own mental health. And I think it's age 14 is when that really kicks in, and you don't have to, your parents don't have to know. But Dr. Amy is a little more experienced, so she can clear up all of the mumbo jumbo that I just said.
No, you did great, Henry. Yeah, the adults at school, all of the adults at school who are employed by the school district are considered mandatory reporters, which means that if a student comes to them and threatens to hurt someone or threatens to harm themselves, someone else, or they report that another student is going to harm them, right? That they're being threatened. That is something that another adult has to know about, so that, you know, imminent harm, that's what we call it, so that nobody is hurt in any way, including you. Other than that, if you need to go and talk to a teacher or someone at the student-based health center or counselor or another trusted adult in the school, absolutely what you talk about does not have to be shared with anybody else and shouldn't be shared with anybody else without your expressed written permission to do so. And so I really want you to know that you can go to your teachers and talk about having a hard day or a sad day. You can go to a favorite coach and just talk to them about how overwhelmed you feel right now with school, or a friend. They are often wonderful advocates for you and givers of advice. And if they're not sure, they know other resources and people that you could talk to as well. So the only indicator there that I just want to put out there again is, unless they're worried about your safety or someone else's safety, you're allowed to talk to people at school. And I want you to feel safe doing so. So Eli and Abigail, I wonder if you could just take turns reading those next two questions, and then they're somewhat related. So maybe our panelists can read them together. I'm just watching our time. We're at about 7:15 students. So Eli and Abigail, do you want to read these questions?
All right, so the first one is, how can we have conversations about our mental health?
What's a good way to start a conversation with a teacher or a friend about mental health?
Awesome. So I think that Sarah and Natalia and Henry just did a great job starting that, like how to begin to have some of those conversations. I wonder if you have anything else to add beyond what you've said in terms of like, how can we have these conversations and what's a good way to start the conversation?
This is going to sound very repetitive, but the best way to start a conversation is, hi, how are you? And that opens up to a lot of things. And it's really checking in with people. We want to respect their boundaries, right? And not force people, but really say like, no, like, how are you? Because I know a lot of people, just say, I'm good as a first thing. Finding commonalities with people is really helpful. So it's just working off of existing relationships and trying to build new ones. And really, this is like a good way to start this. Attending these things is a good way to start conversations about mental health in the larger sense. But in our everyday life, it's talking to people your teachers, parents, friends, really anyone, because mental health is something we all have and we all deal with it every day, good or bad. So.
Awesome. So far, just so everybody knows, I hear Natalia saying, just start with asking, how are you really, right? How are you really doing? Finding commonalities with people and attending conversations around mental health and recognizing that mental health is something that we're all talking about every day. What would our other panelists add to that about good ways to start these conversations?
I can add something. I think kind of like what Natalia was saying, it can be like really hard to actually say how you're feeling. and like just like saying things beyond like, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm okay, like my day was good. And like actually like diving in and like telling other people like what actually happened and how you actually feel. And I think just like starting with the people who you feel most comfortable with, like if it's like your mom or your dad, like actually telling them, or your sister or your best friend, like actually telling them how you feel and like how your day actually went and like what made you upset or what made you happy. And so starting like with the people who like you feel comfortable around, as you get comfortable like expressing those emotions, and then you can start branching out, because I think it can be really hard and like not comfortable at all expressing how you feel with people that you're, who want to like help you. So just like starting where you're most comfortable and then branching out.
I love that, Bella. So start where you're comfortable. Start small and go from there. Love that. Other ideas?
I'd like to add on to that. I loved what Bella said. I was thinking along the exact same lines. Go to someone that you feel comfortable with and continue that conversation. It doesn't mean like continue it for a week until you get treatment or until you find a more sustainable thing to help you out with. But that can mean just having that person be a source that you can go to, keep that relationship healthy with them, and honestly just keep in touch with them and let them know that they're going to be someone that you want to go to, that you want to talk to them about your mental health. I think having a good source also works well with a circle of support that we'll talk about later. Having that good source to go to, someone that you can rely on and that you can, talk to about your mental health issues, or you just need someone to talk to.
Wonderful. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to add to kind of like just going on those lines too, like your mental health is not like a one and done checklist, dump it off. Like it's not like you're pouring your whole heart into someone unless you really want to, but like it's not like a one-time thing you're doing it. And so like starting off small with those small conversations with the people you really trust. And like it could be as easy as like having like a 5-minute conversation one day, just be like, oh, I'm not feeling great today. But then it can add to be more, and just having that constant in your life where you are able to have that outlet, and it's not just like a one time you dump it and then you're done. It's like a constant throughout your life.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Let me add one more thing before we move on to another question. And I would offer this to all of you. And it just is a matter of being real, right? When someone asks you how you're doing, and they are somebody you're comfortable with and you're trying to get to know better, I think so much right now, like when we're on social media, is when we're doing great. And what people see on social media is that everybody's doing great. And I think when you can be real and say, actually, I'm not doing great, or I'm really struggling. I had anxiety myself when Natalia mentioned IB biology. I was like, oof, I don't know about that. So just being real with people when they ask you how you're doing, or if you're struggling with anything, you can be a model yourself for having those conversations around mental health by being genuine with people and letting them know how you're really doing. And when you're having a tough time, just saying you're having a tough time. And you don't have to go into all the logistics, but just being able to say, today's pretty crummy. I'm going to get through it, but it's been kind of a tough day. Lots on my plate today. I'm actually going to encourage the students here, if we could talk about the circles of support as our last question, and that way we have time to get to resources at the end. Sorry, I'm making an executive decision, and I'm wondering, Sarah, if you could get us started with how do we grow circles of support?
Yeah, so I did a video for Stud that's posted somewhere, maybe on our resource tab or our website. But yeah, it was really cool because I had a personal experience with a friend who had come to me. She was dealing with a lot of mental health issues and some drug abuse issues. And I was in her circle. I was in a circle of support for her. And she saw me as a person that she can go and talk to, someone that we've been talking about a lot tonight, having that source. And she just kind of said, hey, I'm not doing so good, after I'd asked her how she was. And we had a conversation, and I was just able to be there for her. It was during COVID, so I wasn't able to connect a whole lot, just personally be there for her, but still having that connection and being able to understand that she was going through something rough, and that I was able to give her that connection and stuff was really really helped her out. I think that a lot of people think that they don't have any friends, which is a circle of support isn't your friend group. It's the group of people around you that you feel comfortable with and safe enough to be around, that you can say, hey, I'm not doing so well. I'm not feeling so good. Someone that you can go to if you're having a rough day. Your circle of support can be small or big. It can be like a couple of friends, or it could be, just a parent and a best friend. Everyone's circles of support are individual, especially to them. So yeah, I'll just give someone else an opportunity to continue on with what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a great start, Sarah. Does anybody want to add, like, how do we grow our circle? Or if we don't have a lot of people or we're not sure, how could we invite more people in? How do we do that?
I would add that as when I was a freshman in high school, we had teacher groups during my freshman year where teachers had, like, I would have a bio teacher, a history teacher, and an English teacher. And all of the people that also had that teacher had, like, similar teachers. So if I went to Mr. Dennis for English, then somebody else who could be in my bio class would also have Dennis for English. And what was really great about that was I had students that were in my English class, bio class, and history class. And just that kind of like facilitated community helped immensely in growing my circle of support, meeting new friends. Even I think that for growing your circle of support, there's many different ways. I think that my personal favorite circle of support is with my teachers. I am very fond of my teachers, which is kind of funny because I definitely bug them a lot with emails. But I think that there's different kinds of circles of support. There are your circles with your friends. Even my mom's friends, I have circles of support there. My teachers as well. And in those classes, I have circles of support. So really growing your circles of support is broadening your horizons to what people there are. Talking to teachers. I know that it might not seem like you're connected to your teachers, but I promise you that your teachers do care about you or they wouldn't be teaching. That's a huge part of whenever I hear a teacher talk about how much they care about teaching, I'm always like, wow, your teachers are people. I promise. I know we address them as Mr. and Mrs. and it's very formal, but 100% your teachers are real people. Some of them have struggled with depression. Some of them have struggled with anxiety, and a lot of them all have mental health. So I think that in that same regard, your circles of support are what you want them to be, and in order to grow them, there's so many different ways. You just talk to people. You could even be like sitting at your table group in I don't know, world history, and you could be like, "Hey, you're sitting next to me. How are you doing?" And it's really daunting, and then you realize that that person sitting next to you also likes Starbucks. Wow, that's crazy. And then you guys go and get Starbucks. It's intimidating at first. Coming from somebody with anxiety, I totally get it. But once it starts, it snowballs. And then you're like, this is my new lifelong best friend. And I would totally recommend saying hi to random people in the hallways because, one, if they don't respond, then you have a story about it being kind of funny. And also, if they do respond, then you just said hi to somebody and you probably made their day. So just going out of your way to kind of do those things and kind of bring people closer to you, regardless of if you know them or not, is a great idea. And I would totally recommend doing it. I love doing it. It makes me feel good about myself. So
awesome. I also want to just offer to all of you that are on the call today, whether you be a student panelist or a participant tonight, you are probably in someone's circle of support and you don't even know it. And so just continue to reach out to people and offer help and support. I want to honor everybody's time, and it's about 7:27, and we wanted to be sure that we kept our presentation to about an hour. And so Bella and Sam, I think you're going to go over resources real quick for us.
Cool. Sam, do you want to start us off and we can take turns?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so some resources that we have at Tigard and Tualatin High School. Our own club, Stud, is always open for you guys. You can always come here for support, and Stand Up, which is at Tualatin as well. You can go there. We have a mental health club as well at Tigard and No Place for Hate. There's so many great clubs at Tigard and Tualatin that you can go to and join, and it'd be great. So
yeah. and with that, they have a list. We have a list of like all of our affinity groups at Tigard, and they're all at Tualatin as well. And they can be a place where you can probably find a lot of people who have like similar experiences or things that you can have people you have things in common with, and you can probably find a lot of people to add to your circle of support to help you. And again, counselors, SROs, the school-based health center where you can go whenever and get help. And so yeah, that's a lot of good resources, and I'd recommend taking advantage of them.
Awesome. And the last little website that's down there is what Sarah was referring to before. This is the Tigard Turns the Tide /Hope and Beyond. And that's where you'll see all of the student videos that all of these students took a lot of time and effort putting information into about how to create circles of support, how to reach out for help, the importance of boundaries, the difference between mental health and mental illness. There's a whole slew of really beautiful videos on there. Sam and Bella?
Yeah, so on here are just some more support things you can look at. There's like 911 numbers that you can call, people you can contact to reach out for help.
Mm-hmm. And you can probably see, you can take a picture of this or screenshot it or whatever. And it's for things on like a wide range of what you need for LGBTQ youth or sexual assault, for suicide. And they're all, it could be like scary or like if you've never used it, they're kind of, but they're good things, and nobody will ever regret using them. So yeah, I definitely recommend.
Awesome. I especially love that several of these resources teens can text, which I think is their communication language that's more supportive than them calling into a hotline. So I love seeing the text chats up there too.
And yeah, these are just even more community resources outside of like school and stuff like that. And so you can just take screenshots, pictures, and look them up, and whenever you feel like you need it to use them.
Absolutely. So just some more community resources here, and we'll try to get these up on the Hope and Beyond webpage as well. Miss Jolly's class has worked really hard on creating some QR codes and resources as well that we're getting put up onto the website so that we have all of the information that all the students have worked really hard to put together in one space. So just as we mentioned earlier, here's the resources at Tigard-Tualatin High School. And there's the website that all of the students have been working hard to create and add resources to. Let me just pop into the chat box. So I'm going to just stop my screen share for just a moment. And what I really like to do at the end of a big presentation where students have worked so hard is that if you are comfortable turning on your videos so these students can see the faces of the people who've been listening to them all night, and just either give them like on the bottom of your screen, there's the emotional reactions. You give them a heart, or you could give them a literal heart, or a round of applause, or campfire fingers, or whatever you feel comfortable with. But just let the students know how well they did tonight. Yeah, so I hope you all see that. Lots of rounds of applause, lots of hearts for all of you. Mr. Bowman saying this is an amazing discussion with excellent resources. Thank you for the presentation. We are so grateful for you in the community. Congratulations. Kim Palmer says, you are leaders in your community doing great work. And Miss Wilson Faye saying, I'm so impressed with you all. Well done. And Margaret Doherty, great job. So I hope you're all feeling the love. 100%. Thank you all. Like I said, I'm so inspired by the students on this panel. I can't even say enough about the inspiration that I have for young leaders and taking stigma out of mental health issues. I hope that we get an opportunity to do this again and again and again so that these messages continue to go out. So I hope you all see in the chat box just how impressed everyone is. Thank you, Cindy Hillier. I agree, amazing event. And Connie saying to all of you, my favorite part of being a teacher is watching young people shine like all of you. So Awesome. And Sarah's dad with lots of love too. You're also well-spoken and inspirational. Thank you for reaching out with this panel. All right, I'm going to ask the stud students TIAC panel to stay on the Zoom call so we can just wrap up and we'll say goodnight to everyone. Connie, do you want to say goodnight?
Well, Dr. Amy, I think Sarah's got a closing for us. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
I just wanted to say thank you guys for all being here tonight. We really appreciate you all and your support. We're glad that we could have given you guys some help tonight, some questions answered, and just to inform you guys all more. We'd like to say a big thank you to Dr. Amy and Connie Rawmakers, who've been working so hard. They are fearless leaders and we love them so much. Also want to mention again that we are continuing to work on mental health issues in our school and to get resources more available to our community. So feel free to go check out those resources. Our website, the Hope and Beyond website, is definitely a great one that we've all worked really hard on. If you are at Tigard High School tomorrow, we are doing a table for Red Ribbon Week. We're celebrating tomorrow. So drop by that table during one of your lunch times. And thank you guys so much again.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.